train them. These are also deposit-only locations, just like Garrison was set up, so no withdrawals can be made and we're only taking the deposits in. The students can continue to come to any of our locations if they would like to add to their account when the school branch isn't open, or if they would like to withdraw from the account. The account. Also, every student that's enrolled in elementary school is also eligible to open a We Are Savers account. Tim will go more into the details of those accounts, but we offer an outstanding yield of return on those. Any student, again, is eligible, as well as middle school students, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. We also, in the fall of 2012, we offered a faculty account and expanded the program to the teachers and the administrative staffs as well at each school. And we provided an overview of that program at staff meetings at each of the schools. And we also went to location to open those accounts as well to make it easy and user-friendly for anyone that wanted to bank with West End and join the We Are Savers program. In the winter of 2013, at the end of January.
Apparently we're still in the winter.
It never ends.
Wishful thinking.
I worked with Dr. Boroff to create a letter to send out to all the intermediate school families to let them know that we wanted to extend the program to them. We don't have a physical location at Test, Hibbard, or Dennis, just because of the logistics and them not being in the schools year-round in the morning. A lot of them are still outside until school starts. But we did offer the same program to all those students, and we sent out a direct mail packet to each of those families, letting them know that they also receive the same product specifics as the elementary school does. We also introduced financial literacy workshops to the 4th grade classes at all the elementary schools, and Robin will go more into the literacy component. And then we're also offering literacy packages at the high school within the ICE program. And then the next screen here is just a snapshot of some of the marketing pieces. We created a different one for each of the different schools. So we have the one with the jar of the loose change. That one is pretty specific to the young savers. They have piggy banks that they bring in, bags of loose coins, birthday checks, and bills that they get. And then we followed that up with one that was specific to the intermediate market at the middle schools or the intermediate schools. And then we also have one for the faculty. So I wanted to share those with you. I'll pass those around. And then I brought these along too. We launched these when we opened the RHS branch, but we do have customized pieces. We have a debit card that says Richmond Community Schools, checkbook covers, checks. So we did brand it all to the program. So I wanted to share those just in case we have new members that weren't here originally, but we launched. Robin? All right. Thank you very much, Susan. Mm-hmm.
Hello, I'm Robin Henry, and I'm going to speak a little bit about, I think, one of the most important components of this entire program, and that is the financial literacy piece. With the 4th graders, and I believe there's about 340 of them, we provide financial literacy training, anywhere between 5 to 6 sessions for each of the classes, and they range from saving to how to handle credit cards, what is a credit card, what is a debit card, and what's really behind that as far as there has to be money somewhere down the line. We have a book that we share with the students, The 3 Cups, which I think is a great tie-in with the Lemonade Day. It stresses saving for your future, your immediate needs, and also giving back to your community. And we feel that that's really important. Some of the other sessions, A Tale of Two Brothers. One saves and one doesn't. And what are those consequences? The decision-making tree, the impact of financial decisions that students can make. Secret agent savings. And that is a special session on identity theft. It's not too early to start talking to our students about protecting their money and how they go about doing that. And then where is the money? And that is the credit card and the debit card, and that they are financial instruments that need some money behind them. In our high school program, we work with the ICE program, where we provide training on credit, deposit relationships, how to get a loan, what's interest rate, their credit scores, and those type of things that they're immediately going to start facing if they haven't already in their high school years. And this year, we are trying to also work with existing groups in the school system and other community groups as far as bringing programs to the middle school. We're trying to look at ways to kind of piggyback and enhance the reality store, whether maybe it's some pre-training prior to that experience or afterwards in debriefing. So we're really proud of those efforts, and we're hoping that we are making a difference in the lives of the students and how they are becoming fiscally responsible. Tim Frame?
Thank you, Robin. The final page in the handout has a recap as of the end of the year, and we were very pleased to see a nice uptick in the number of accounts. You can see we have a total of 239 accounts, the vast majority of those belonging to the elementary and middle school children, which we really like to see. As a reminder, these accounts do receive a special interest rate, anywhere between 3 to 5% on the first $1,000, so it's a nice return for the youngsters. Also, what we like to do is we look at the total each year, and it's not just about the special rates, but what we focus on is just the option for the students to learn good saving habits, how to budget, and the kids really look forward to coming in with their little bags of change, as Robin mentioned.
I think we had to get a extra coin counter, actually, which is great.
Each year, as a way to give back to the students, you may recall that West End donates 1% of the balances back to RCS, primarily for the benefit of the academic clubs. And last year, you might recall, we presented a check for $3,800. And I'm pleased to say this year, the check is $5,200.
Wow.
So we would like to present that to the board at this time.
Nice. That's cool.
Chance to get up again.
Oh. Gladly.
Money this time.
Yes.
That's super cool.
I'm sure it's addressed to Linda Morrison.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We
That's super cool.
I know. Where do you want it? Okay.
Feel like they're appreciated.
That's great.
Since Pete is here, shouldn't we do the nom award thing?
Just one final word. I just wanted to express the appreciation of the board of directors as well. We believe that partnerships are a way to continue to grow our community. We think education. We opened up a foundation this year, West End Bank Foundation, and one of the pillars in that foundation is education. So we know we'll always be committed to Richmond Community Schools and to the efforts to make sure that we provide and produce the best kids for the future of this great city and country as well. So thank you all again. Appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice. Nicely done. I'm thinking that I have to turn this check over to Mr. Coddington like real soon. He's like glaring at me, I can see. Thank you very much.
Mr. Coddington, does this appear on our next month's receipt of donations?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we had no receipts.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to go to action items.
And our first action item has to do with refinancing of pension bonds. To present this concept tonight, we have Mr. Coddington help you
Good evening.
walk through it.
We always follow the presentation and say, what does this have, that's what our education system's all about. It's exciting to do that. But nevertheless, we're here tonight to talk about refinancing the pension bond. This
That's pretty
exciting. You can see, people were waiting with bated breath. This presentation.
As people who sat on the board who had to approve that a long time ago, we're kind of excited, aren't we?
We are excited about that. I want to get a little history. We borrowed $19 million from the Indiana Bond Bank in 2004, our first payment in 2005. That $19 million was to eliminate unfunded liabilities in Richmond Community Schools for commitments that were made in the 70s and the 80s. With that, the interest rate from that loan was between it was a graduated interest rate from 2.63% in 2005. It's 4.85% today, and in 2020, if we keep it there, it would be 5.7%. Well, a lot of this world has changed since 2004. And in October, before we went through our financing that we looked at, Dr. Borf and I sat down and said, wonder if we have an opportunity to refinance the pension bond. Well, I wasn't here when it was done, but I didn't realize that it was through Indiana Bond Bank, to be honest with you. And that was a pool of, pick a number, $200 million. You just can't arbitrarily say, I want to take my $10 million out and refinance it. To do that would have been very expensive. But we called them and asked if we could. And I don't know if we were the first call, the sixth call, or where, but lo and behold, 120 days later, they contact us saying, we would like to refinance the pension bond of 2004. Would you be interested in being refinanced? And of course, we said any opportunity we have to save money, and especially interest expense, we would be interested in. So they said, let me show you what refinancing would look like, and they presented 3 scenarios. Now, these are estimates, because as we know with the bonding that we're getting ready to do, until you sell the bonds, you don't have a bond rate. But they think that they can do it for under 2.5%.
Wow.
Now, I hope, on any good finance person, they underpromise and overdeliver. So I hope these numbers will look better than this. But we are given 3 options when we refinance. Today, our payments are $924,000. And if we would stay to 2020, we own $12,939,000 to pay off our debts. If we would refinance under the taking our money up front savings, we would not have a payment in July of 13, and we would save $924,000. And in fact, we wouldn't have a payment. Our payment would be reduced for the first payment in 2014 by $156,000. For interest savings over the next 6 years of $1,081,000, showing that our payments would be $11,858,000, and it would be virtually flat payments. So our tax rate would not go down. The length of the payment would be the same, and but we would get our money up front. We have a tax rate for 2013. We will collect the money in the spring and fall, short of lack of collections and circuit breaker. We will get $924,000. Now, for that, we get the money up front. As you know, we're projecting, because we don't get 100% of our taxes, we will have a shortfall in 2020. This money would allow us to pay for that shortfall because we got it up front. At first glance, that sounds very good. But what do we know that happened with this? They may look at our 2014 cash balance when we put the budget together and say, hey, I see you got $924,000 in your account here. Why don't we just lower your payment $924,000 for our good taxpayers? And then we're going to be short $920,020, and we're going, so what originally sounded good might be a risk. Didn't say they were going to do that, but again, if past practice, that's exactly what they did for our debt service payment this year. So if we did that, we may, DLGF may use our operating balance for 2014. We would still have a shortfall in 2020. It would provide no relief to the Capital Projects Fund. And I did check, even if we did this, and Mr. Slifer, which was a great suggestion when the exec said, can we move that to the rainy day fund and not have a cash balance that could be taken in 2014? Right. And there is special legislation that's been enacted within the last 2 years that said, no, you cannot move that. I did not know that when we met, but I followed up on that good suggestion. That is one scenario we looked at very hard. At one point in time, I thought that would be my recommendation. But let's look at scenario number 2. You'll see the numbers look very much the same. It's $12,939,000 is what we pay today. We would take our savings and interest in 2019 and 20 and shorten the bond payment by one payment and saving again in interest, $1,081,000. You see how common these threads, these are looking now. We would still pay $11,858,000, and we would still have a payment of $11,800. Just another way to take it. So we're saying, well, if we're going to have a shortfall in 2020, why don't we just pick it up there and we won't have the shortfall? Good thinking. But with the DLGF, for what they just did, it says your final payment is made in 2007, and you've got 2019, I'm sorry, in 2019. We've already given you that money. You owe us $920,000. With that, then, we will have a shortfall of payment in 2019 and 20. It provides no relief to the capital projects fund and no change to our operating balance, but it does provide relief to capital projects. I'm sorry, it provides no relief to capital projects until 2020. And we would get the relief in 2020 of $1,081,000. So that's got some merit into it. If we want to wait 6 years to get that, and if we'd known in 2004 what we know today, I'm not sure we would have done it in 2004. So that's saying the law as we have it today, this is what would happen, and as we know, 6 years is a lifetime from now. So let's look at opportunity number 3. And this opportunity says, you still see your 12.9 and what we're paying today, and it says, why don't we take and lower our interest payments every year? And so in 2013, in July, instead of paying $924, would pay $77,000 less, and it would be $847. And we carry that on out, and you still see that we're going to save $1,081,000. You still see that our payment's going to be $11,800. It's just a different way of doing the same thing. Now, what opportunities we have with that? Well, the first opportunity is we'll have less annual payments starting virtually immediately, which then means we would have less in levy neutrality for the next 6 years, which means that from 2014 to 2020, our capital projects fund would be able to garner that $1,081,000 at virtually $154,000 a year. That is taking our, so our tax rate would be level. It would come off of the pension bond, and because levy neutrality, it would go on to the CPF. Our tax rate would be level, but we would have $154,000 a year for the next 6 years to do stuff with other than paying interest. Now, the risk on that, we're still going to have a pension bond shortfall in 2020. No change in our operating balance, and no less time to pay the bond off. It'd still be paid off in 2020. As I look at this today, I don't know what they're going to do in 6 years, and I've become a little hesitant in this changing world that if nothing else happens, I'm saving $77,000 this year, and I'll probably save $154 next year. And the next year, because it's a 2-year biennium, and we don't see any changes in this. If we don't need that $154,000 that we're going to get in capital projects for the next 6 years, and the board decides, let's just bank it, guess what we have in 2020? We have enough to pay
Yeah,
the shortfall. Oh, now all of a sudden, it's not a double whammy. This is money in the bank that we could do something. Or Dr. Boroff had another idea, and I'm sure everybody around the table has another idea of what they could do with that $154,000 a year. But do you want to share one of your thoughts, or is it not appropriate?
Well, I hate to say too much for fear that people would count on this.
No.
But one idea is we have been searching for ways to address the one-on-one costs, the sustainability issue of the one-on-one. And for the people who are listening out there, we're talking about computing devices, one for every child, either in schools or in grade levels or some such place. This might be, I'm not proposing this, but I think we need to look at this as a possibility for the use of these funds to set up a one-on-one that would be affordable for the next 6 years. It would at least allow us that opportunity to experiment before we actually develop a sustainability model that may or may not be necessary. Just an idea.
Just an idea, but the nice thought about this, the sustainability piece, because in 2020, we're going to get $1.8 million back in capital projects, and the sustainability, we'd only have to use $154,000 of it a year. That's got my attention. I thought it was a great idea. The other thing, $154,000 is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money in our contingencies plans when we have a $300,000 project, a $450,000 project, or an $800,000 project. That's me. When we have those projects that we say it's time, we can't wait 3 years at $154,000 to get the money. Just another thought. So I'm open for discussions. My recommendation as the Chief Financial Officer would be to take the bond bank credit every year, but there's certainly advantages and disadvantages to each one, and I would entertain any questions or any dialogue that the board might have.
So the one that's up on the screen is the one that you're recommending?
Yes.
Should we do the motion and then have the conversation?
Sure.
Okay, we have a recommendation on the floor. I need,
Make the motion.
okay, Kelly Baumgartner makes the motion.
Second.
And Aaron Stevens seconds the motion. Discussion, questions?
Jeff has one?
Jeff, I'm sorry.
I think when this was first proposed to the executive committee, as far as knowing that this was going to come up for discussion tonight, we discussed all the options, and I think we pretty much all agreed that we were fearful that if we left the money up front in the debt service, that I don't see why the state of Union wouldn't reduce our tax rate because we would have the money there. I think we all felt pretty confident that that would happen. The two options that I like the best, I think part of the decision that we have to be concerned with tonight is once we ratify this, or not ratify this, but if it's ratified tonight, then it's pretty much a done deal because we're given the bond bank the authority to go ahead and move forward with this, so that we really can't change anything after tonight, if I'm correct on that. We can't change
One of the three.
one of the three.
Yes.
So, one of the options that we discussed in the meeting was we just approved through a resolution to do a technology bond of of 1.75 million. And, we talked about that this is an opportunity to get some of the money back and lower the tax rate to the constituents. But at the same time, I think the options of reducing our debt and relieving the capital projects fund, it makes more sense. I think that gives us the flexibility and is reducing our interest rate at the same time. So I think there was a lot of discussion on it, although it's moved kind of quick. But so I think it makes sense.
No, we haven't discussed it.
Pat?
Couple of things. Tonight, we only have to vote on one of these options. We don't have to say what we'll do with the 77 or the 154,000, because I'm not ready. The rest of us haven't had that kind of a discussion about what might possibly happen with that amount of money, and I'm not ready to go there.
We really
But
didn't either.
I'm ready to go.
We're not making a recommendation on that either.
Okay, well, because I can. This makes a lot of sense. It's not that I don't trust the state. Well, maybe it is. I don't trust the state, just because of the experiences we've had in the last few years. And so this one makes more common sense to somebody who is just kind of looking at it.
Yeah, we're only approving the bond sale and the reduced
Right.
interest
We're only
rate.
approving
not
tonight the
what
bond
we're going to do
sale
with the
and
money.
which one of the three, and then they will come back to us and say, the bond's been sold, this is it, here's your new amortization schedule, this is the savings. These are just the best average that they have.
Suzanne?
All we have to gauge, we know what the rules are today. And the only thing we can do about what the state might do is past performance.
Exactly.
And so because we know what happened, I think that it makes logical sense to protect that as much as possible, give us the opportunity to use it.
Yeah, I think so too. And, I mean, who's to say that something might not change in
Oh, I'm
3
sure it
years or
will.
4 years?
I'm sure it
Because
will.
who would have guessed in 2004 that we would be in this place?
Yes.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Our second action item is a recommendation or a request for ratification on reclaiming the C.R. Richardson building. And I am asking the board to ratify a notice that we presented to the Department of Education last week, reclaiming the C.R. Richardson building as a building to be used for classroom instruction.
Need a
Need a
motion? I'll make
motion?
it.
Yeah.
I will make that motion.
Ms. Suzanne?
And I'll third it.
And seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments, questions?
Well, I think,
Yeah, Jeff?
I think it's important that we note that there's several things that's factored into this that we really need to discuss. And I'm sure Dr. Borfman may want to add some things, but part of the process is by reclaiming the building, we're not saying we're opening it tomorrow. What we're saying is we want a year's time to decide what educational programs, if any, that we move into it. And part of our concern is with the way the legislation is moving, that if someone else, or specifically probably a charter school, I guess you could say, decides that they would want to put a claim against the building, then there's some legal...
flexibility.
Yeah, we lose the flexibility of if we get the Head Start grant, if we want to work out a partnership with the Excel Center, if we want to put, other services or preschools, or we just lose we could potentially lose our flexibility. So I think it's kind of important that we're not sending a message out that we're reopening the school building tomorrow.
Right.
So, but I guess there are some other things that we might want to consider, so.
But I think as I've talked with a lot of folks, and folks have said to me, you are the school board, and you should have control with what about what happens to that building. It's not just flexibility in my mind. It really is that we need to make the decisions about what that building can be or should be used for. And so I feel really strong about this resolution because I'd like to find some way to use it educationally. We have lots of many options, but I think we need to have the control, and that's why I think it's a very
Well, I think we need to
important thing.
protect our interests.
Absolutely.
And
Interest of the taxpayers.
we may very well need to utilize that building for our own programming.
Right.
That's right.
So, and if not, we know that we have someone else who might be interested in leasing that building. And so it's protecting our interests, too.
Well, and you know what? We are the elected school board. The charter schools are not elected, and so we represent the citizens, and we represent the citizens through who pay the taxes. And so I feel better if we can take control and have control over what does happen in that building.
Aaron?
And just remind everyone in the public, you know, a couple of years ago when we were in the discussion in regards to closing C.R. Richardson, circumstances have changed immensely since then. But with those changing circumstances, opportunities that weren't present, you know, 2 years ago have also come up too. That would make that even a better location for not only our use for educational purpose, but also for community partnerships.
So this is a question. This discussion this evening is only about reclaiming it, not about what's going to happen there.
It
And
is,
I
but I
think-
would like to, I'd like to have a little conversation with the board about that. But if you'd like to take your vote on this first, I think that would be in order.
Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I think I would like to have some direction from the board in whether we say no to some opportunities now or to move forward trying to secure the opportunities. We have had some conversation with the Excel Center, as I have reported in the past, and they're prepared to go forward provided they have a willing partner, and the Richmond Community Schools would be the willing partner. We have an opportunity to pursue a partnership with the YMCA. They have not been assertive in any way. They have held back and have watched us and have said, only when you feel comfortable do we want to pursue this opportunity for partnership. But they have been right there, willing to have conversation, and they've said, we are very interested. Now, we also have the Head Start grant, or the Head Start program, and to this day, the whole country is asking, when is this going to be announced? We've seen news items from around the country asking the same question we're asking. Head Start is also being negatively impacted by the sequestration, and I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but my position and my suggestion to the board is don't be held hostage to the federal government's inability to answer that question for us. I think we need to move forward. The opportunity presented by the Excel Center, the opportunity presented by the Y, are both excellent complements to our educational program. They expand our program into an area that needs to be served in order to enhance the students we serve, their parents. The YMCA has supplemental programs that many of our students, K through 12 and into adulthood, can take advantage of. There are opportunities in the lower portion. The upper portion of that building has already been examined for its ability to provide space for both the Excel Center and the YMCA. There are already drafts of prints that we can be looking at to show you how that can be done. The lower portion of that building has 9 classrooms. It easily can accommodate our Head Start if that's what we get. It could also be a great place for other community partnerships that would also provide educational opportunities for our students. While I realize that there's a potential to have to serve additional students from the STEM Academy, I don't know that we would need the CR building to do that. We've acknowledged that we have approximately 250 some seats in the corporation. That exceeds the amount that we would need to accommodate those students if every one of them turned to the Richmond Community Schools, should they need to do that. I think that we're in great shape to have further conversation with the Excel Center and the YMCA at this point.
Do you need to know what we're thinking about that?
I would like to have some direction.
I would just start by saying I support that move. From our strategic plan, it says we need to work with partnerships. From my work with the city and what's going on there, when I look at the educational attainment level of this community, we're really going to struggle in the future if we don't have a program like Excel. And I can see, I've been very impressed as I've gone on their website and looked at and talked to some friends in Anderson who see what's going on in the Excel Center. So I, for one, would support that move.
Aaron?
The community impact, even if and I'm all for, let's go ahead with Excel, let's go ahead with YMCA. I'm looking also at the community impact in that immediate area, because especially with the offerings of what the Excel program, it would have a great for the impact on some of the families that are in that area. The proximity, I think that would break down some of the barriers and some of the fears of going back and getting into like the Excel program, as opposed to having to go all the way across town or go someplace else. I think it would be an inspiration to do it, not only to them but also the families immediately in that area. Plus, if we do the YMCA, if that was a partnership that came to fruition, reminding everyone also that, even though the Jeffers Boys and Girls Club is just 4 blocks down the street, their offerings, their program offerings that they have, and especially the educational offerings that they have to provide for students and for the community, are wide and different. We would not, if we had the YMCA at that facility, it would not take away from Boys and Girls Club or vice versa based upon the programming offerings. So I'm very much in favor of it.
Kelly?
I'm also in favor of it. I think we've established that there are definitely several different educational needs, no matter which way we go. I was wondering, you filed to reclaim the CR building last week. When will that be done? When will that be off the list?
The reclaiming it's done.
Okay, so we could move ahead with Excel at this point and the Y?
That's right.
Dixie?
Well, and I wanted to say also that when we had the adult ed program, when it was a part of the GED and you had adult secondary credit, it wasn't just the Richmond community, it was the entire Wayne County.
Right.
And so it's not only going to help Richmond, it's also going to help our entire surrounding area, because adults came to that program.
That's an excellent point.
Jeff?
I hate to be the first one that has any kind of negative connotation to it, but I guess going financially, financially concerns me. Can we afford it? Is it going to hurt from our primary mission? Not that putting additional educational resources is not a mission. We closed the building because of the cost it would cost to renovate it. Hopefully the tenants, and we have to view them as tenants. We really don't want to be a landlord, but so hopefully along with that, it'll come maintenance cost for us. It'll come, so hopefully they can share in that. The idea of the Excel Center sounds promising. If we got awarded the Head Start, we would have the same concerns. We would still have the building to maintain, although with that did come some money. I know that we've got approval of some contingency funds, but that, I guess, the financial piece of it is a concern of mine.
Well, if we are giving our approval to move forward with this, wouldn't that be a part of the plan as you begin to work with the Excel Center or with the Y or whoever the tenants might be, so that we know what that is going to look like financially for us?
I hear loud and clear, and if you recall during the master planning process, we were very open about the cost concern of maintaining those buildings. Any arrangement that I would be working with these partners would be to provide some sustainability in terms of dollars and cents coming our way to support the maintenance, utilities, and insurance of that building.
Well, and we're going to have, in reality, I also realize we're going to have to put some trust out in it, because part of, for Excel to make this happen, they have to have our go-ahead in 2 weeks' time, basically. Because if they don't have our go-ahead within 2 weeks' time, then it's going to be too late for them to open in the fall. So I realize that even as a bean counter, I may not be able to have all my questions answered by 2 weeks, but we just need to be aware. And when we met with them, they were very understanding of that. I will give them credit. I think they were very understanding of the fact of they realized that there was going to be some financial cost involved. So,
what impressed me about them was that they have a mission, and they know what their mission is, and they are pursuing that mission strongly. And, they have a clear direction of what they want to accomplish, and I appreciated that.
I did too.
There weren't too many gray areas in talking with them.
Well, I think there's another piece. When this idea first came up from the KC STEM, as we heard people talking about it, they were looking at this as servicing those people who had kids coming to their school, at least, or might be at some point. So it is a marketing tool. And we keep saying we need parents who care about education. And when you have parents who don't have, adults who have the young kids in our school who don't have the education, and then they don't feel comfortable with that. So that's an intangible piece. You could never put a price tag on that. But I think at some point that will begin to pay benefits in terms of the kids who come to school, who will have more connection with education, and maybe even more kids who come to our schools. So that's an intangible, but I don't want us to forget there are other factors out there.
Well, it's also going to employ about 25
That's
people.
Educated people, right?
Dixie?
I also wanted to say that in your conversations with Excel, I think we also, there's one thing that bothers me, and that's with the potential dropouts or kids that's dropped out that we could reclaim, that they might go after. There's a little bit of wiggle room in there that I think we need to, they need to complement our program as we complement theirs.
What age do they start with?
Ninth graders.
Yeah.
They could begin as early as that.
Ninth grade. Yeah.
Now, they were pretty emphatic that that's not their interest.
They were asked that point blank.
That's right. Their interest is in working with adults. They are not looking to service students who are unhappy with the high school. They're looking for people who weren't successful in completing that high school diploma, but they said that their niche market is 19 on up. And they've worked with Anderson. I know they've worked with Anderson not to not to be in conflict with the Anderson program.
Purposefully.
I just think we need to be very
aware.
careful with that piece of it.
Well, because they did also say that they would not turn anyone away.
Right.
So, even though I don't think they are intentionally going to, go after any of our students, it certainly could happen that some of our students might go that direction. But I feel that they will work with us.
In fact, I know they will.
So what's the next step? I mean, what do we need to do?
Well, what I've heard tonight is, from all of you, at least the consensus I'm hearing, is to move forward and have some conversations with them. If a stronger message would be for you to adopt a motion just to tell me, to have further conversation, to bring back a recommendation of some sort with our partners.
I'll move that.
Okay,
I'll second it.
and seconded by Kelly. Comments or questions?
So the recommendation simply is telling you to go ahead and have a conversation with them.
And to bring
To
back a
bring back a
recommendation.
recommendation.
We support.
Well, negotiate, because at this
And it-
point, we haven't really
Well,
given you that at
It
this
could be
point
with
to say,
Excel, and it could be
let's
with the
go
YMCA,
Yeah.
do it.
or both.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank
Move
you.
forward.
The direction's nice. Okay.
Okay, we're ready for our 2020 vision.
Mr. Mays, presentation and request for approval of plans and specifications for Dennis and Hibbard.
Yes, thank you very much. Right there on my chair, if you want me to open them up, for the plans and specs. Be honest with you, we're 95% complete. I'm in the process of reviewing them right now, and the reason why we're not 100% is because our schedule is to have them completed by April the 10th and approved at that board meeting, but since we've changed the procedures on the board, that's why we're asking for it to be approved right now, tonight. Our schedule is to have the plans ready for contractors on April the 10th. The bid date is May the 1st. We would like to bring it to the board on the 8th of May with a recommendation. We would start construction on the 20th. Now, even though school's still in session, when I say we would start the 20th, at Dennis, we'd probably start the bus drive, and that wouldn't affect school at all. At Hibbard, we would start in the boiler room, because at that point in time, the boiler is offline hopefully because the weather is appropriate.
No guarantees.
Then the total renovation, we would start on June the 3rd, with completion being done by August the 2nd. Now, on the Dennis project, we've talked about it several times on what we're doing there, and basically it's the new bus drive, rework the existing parking lot. It's a refinishing, the finishes on the inside of all classrooms, lighting, new casework, computer areas, carpet, painting. Also on all the corridors, we're renovating the restrooms, the lounge area, reworking the nurses station, making everything handicap accessible. And that we've been able to come up with 2 extra classrooms so that in the future, if we get that bulge of students, we've got 2 classrooms that we can handle them. We're going to update the security. We're looking at updating the media library area and new music room. And now, what we're doing is, because it's unlike the other projects, we have a limit that we cannot go over because of the way the bond issue is, and we have we feel about 1.8, a little bit over 1.8 for construction. The other was for soft cost and design fees. So we have 12 alternates, so that we can, if it comes in over the budget, those 12 alternates will get us down to where we have to be. And one big alternate is, we've talked back and forth several times about when we do the second floor. this year or next year. We want to test the waters because there could be an impact of overtime, like there was at Crestdale, to get the job done by August the 2nd for the second floor. So we're going to ask for an add or deduct alternate to do the second floor. And if we would save $25,000, $30,000 that we could put someplace else in the project, then we wouldn't do the second floor until next summer. And that's a good clean alternate. So that's what we're planning on Dennis. On Hibbard, we've talked about we're going to replace the boilers. We're going to put new unit ventilators in each classroom. We're going to upgrade the air in the office area, the library, and in some auxiliary areas. And we're going to put a new unit in the orchestra choir room. So they'll bring everything up to date. So we also have a couple alternates there. It's not quite as critical, but I know Bob doesn't want to go over a certain amount of money, so it's so that the board would have a chance to decide on what you want to do to get to the dollar amount that we have. So we would like to have approval for the drawings so that we can get them ready to put them out for bid.
I'll move.
Okay. We have a motion by Jeff Slifer and seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments or questions? Jeff?
You mentioned the alternate on Dennis for the
Yes.
first floor and second floor.
Yes.
Are you going to include in the base bid, the first floor, that all materials are purchased on the base bid? That way they only have to worry about the labor cost on the alternate
We
for the
could do
second
that.
floor?
We could do that, yes.
That way they don't have to worry about the cost of
And
products?
in our specs, we allow them to put it in a bonded warehouse, materials covered by insurance, and so we would be safe there.
Well, I think most of your HVAC equipment would already be purchased with the base
Yes, well,
bid.
and light fixtures.
So, I mean, there wouldn't, as long as you put in there that, that way you're dealing only with labor as far as the
That's right.
difference.
We want to be able to buy the packages at the greatest amount of material that we
Right.
can do to get the best number.
Okay.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Our next item is approval of the common wage scale. Mr. Coddington.
The Common Wage Committee met on March 19th and adopted the scale submitted. It was approved by our committee on a vote 4-1, and the numbers are before you in your board packet.
Okay, do I have a motion? Dixie Robinson, and seconded by Jeff Slifer. Comments and questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
6.03 and 4 are distinctly separate, but they have the same type of request, and I'll let Mr. Coddington deal with those for you.
Thank you. The administration is requesting permission for the Richmond Community School Board of Trustees to publish the required notice to taxpayers for the bidding of the Hibbard and HVAC boiler replacement. This notice will be published on April 10th and 17th. The bid opening will be May 1st, and a recommendation to the board by May 8th.
Now, did you say Hibbard?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we're
I
doing,
get those out of while.
We're doing both?
We're doing,
we'll do
Hibbard first.
Hibbard first.
We just did 04 first, is all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept that recommendation? Aaron Stevens, seconded by Kelly Baumgartner. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Yes, the permission to advertise the Dennis Intermediate School renovation bid. We're requesting the Community School Board of Trustees to publish the required notice to bidding for the Dennis Intermediate School. This notice will be published on April 10th and 17th. The bid opening will be on May 1st, and a recommendation on May 8th so we can start the project.
Okay. Motion made by Dixie Robinson, seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Our next item, will bring Mr. Mays back to the podium, is to report on our projects update.
The update on the Dennis Gymnasium is the wood floor's complete. It's covered up now by special paper to keep it clean and scratches off of it. The basketball goals are installed. Wall padding's complete. All walls are painted. Corridors are getting the finish coat of paint. The floors will be put in this weekend, and the temperature control is done. The kids are ready to move in there the day they get back from spring break. It'll be there.
Nice.
It'll be done this Friday, and then they'll have next week to do punch list, and we'll do our inspections. But when the 8th comes back, they can have it. It's theirs, except for the exterior. Mother Nature, we have the walks in. We don't have it final grading or grass seed, but we figured they'd all be staying inside anyway with that new gym. So that'll come along probably in a couple weeks when the weather allows us to do that.
We need a photographer there, Brian, that very first class that gets to use that new gym. All right, thanks.
At Hibbard, we're just waiting for school to be out to start the drive in the parking lot. If you look at the Ron Robbins Memorial, it may look a little strange right now because you have to see how the parking lot fits into it and the angles of the parking lot and walks. So it's about 95% complete, the Ron Robbins Memorial. There's a couple of punch list items that they have to do, and there's a walk-off mat they have to install in the vestibule, and so we're just about done it. But it'll make sense when we get the walks in and the drive in.
Now, I believe, isn't there still room for donations to purchase benches? The benches aren't there.
Yes, benches are not there yet, and so we're hoping that we can get donations for the benches.
Okay.
So you're short money for the benches.
And a flag. We could use a flag, too. We got the flagpole.
Well, surely we can find a flag.
Get
How
somebody
much
to donate
money
the
are we
flag.
talking about?
How much for a bench?
About $300-400. They're similar to the benches that are at Test. You know, the purple benches there by the
Yeah.
flagpole, just like that.
I think the board ought to
I
ante
think-
up for a
yes.
flag. Come on, guys.
Or a bench.
Or a
Well,
bench.
I think we might know where we can get a flag. I'm just thinking.
You're just thinking.
Yeah. A Bob Rosa Memorial flag somewhere around.
You know, that's a good idea.
It should be noted, as you're talking about donations of flags, Meyer is donating the flag for the Dennis Gym,
Oh,
nice.
fantastic.
and it will be a pretty substantial
It's
flag.
That'd be a huge one, wouldn't it?
6 feet wide and
Oh.
8 to 10 feet long, so I mean, it's not a little flag.
Great.
It's a
Oh,
pretty
that'd
good
be
sized
cool.
flag.
Nice.
That'd be cool.
And with Jeff's help, we're going to light it.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very much.
That'll be neat.
The next item that we have is also an update of sorts. It's the report on our CPAS, and Dr. Parker will present that information, and she'll also update you with some very good news on our iRead 3 at some portion in this presentation.
All righty, thank you very much. Oh, whoa! What the heck?
Yeah.
Where that came from. Okay, this is the first time that we have actually used the strategic plan as our reporting mechanism for CPAS. And what I have done is I've prepared the strategic plan report from the district level, and each of our individual schools have prepared the report for their schools, and you received a copy of that. And we're finding it to be a really good system of reporting our progress and keeping us all focused on the goals, the focus areas, the targets that have been identified in the strategic plan. So our first focus area is highest student achievement, and our first target is to ensure that 90% of RCS students K-12 are reading at or above grade level by 2020. And so this is our baseline year. Our first metric that we did in the fall said 61% of our students were reading at grade level. And the way we measure that, at this point, K-2, we use our M-Class results. Grades 3 and 4, we use our Pearson SuccessNet results. And grades 5 through 12, we use the Scholastic Reading Inventory. And so one of the things that we're doing is looking at getting a more consistent measure, K-4, so that we can feel a little bit better about the numbers that we're reporting there. But based on the results from the second go-round of assessments, we find that 73.1 of our students are reading at grade level. I think a lot of that is a direct result of the interventions and the strategies that were put in place when we got the 61%. So as you look at what the individual schools are doing, they're all addressing that. The second area that we look at is ensuring that 90% of our RCS students master state and national standards by 2020, and we have taken our baseline from the beginning of the year and looked at where we will need to be in 2020 and created some benchmarks for ourselves to make sure that we're on track. So our benchmark for the end of the year this year in English Language Arts would be 76.1%, and in math would be 74.9%. That's where we hope to be at the end of the year when our ISTEP results come back for grades 3 through 8. And you can see that the CPAS reporting, this is our second CPAS report, but we actually have 3 rounds of acuity to report, so you actually have 3 metrics there. And you can see nice growth across the year from CPAS 1, 69.4%, to CPAS 2, 72.4%, or 72.4%, and CPAS 3, 73.9% of our students meeting benchmark in English Language Arts. And math, you can see similar growth where we started at 69.3 and our latest reading was at 74.1. And feeling pretty good about those because historically acuity has underpredicted where we end up on ISTEP, so we feel that we will be able to hit our benchmarks by the end of the year. And then at the high school, this is the first year that we've actually been able to provide this kind of student level data to the board. We just had our CPAS meeting on Monday at the high school, and it's very encouraging. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to get into the data room and watch teachers and the coaches talk about the data, but they've implemented that data room, and these numbers are reflected by individual cards. Every student has a card, and every student has a story on that card. And so at the end of second try, they were waiting to get their results back from the end-of-course assessments, and these are the graduation cohorts. Right now, the graduation cohort of 2013 is at 74%. But if you go to the high school and you look at the senior wall, and how they're tracking those students, they know every single student, they know what every single student needs, and they have a plan in place to ensure that all those kids get where they need to be. They look at things such as they have one group of students who have everything they need to graduate, they just need to pass the end-of-course assessment or need to get their waiver. They have another group of students who just need to pick up 1 or 2 credits. They're meeting with their counselors to find out how are we going to get these credits in. Mrs. Wolpe has always said May is, you know, just panic and crisis time at the high school because she likens it to we're standing at the end of the river as they're getting ready to go off the waterfall, and we're just trying to pull them out, pull them out, pull them out. And what they've done this year is they've gone way further upstream. And so they know their 9th graders right now who are behind a credit, who have a habitual truancy problem, and they are addressing those right now. So they're, you know, they're really being very proactive about getting kids where they need to be. The one thing I would like to add is the cohort of 2015, which is the current 10th grade cohort, that number is a little bit low, and it's complicated by the trimester situation because some kids take a 2-semester English Language Arts class. The honors students all take a 3-trimester language arts class, so they haven't taken their end-of-course assessment yet. They have 80 students who have not even attempted that and won't attempt it till the spring, and so they're not included as having passed it there. So The behavior, we have talked a lot about behavior and how we report this out and how we deal with it. The number that you see reflected here is based on the percentage of kids who demonstrate responsible behavior on a daily basis. They go to school, they do what they're supposed to do, they don't get office referrals. And so we consistently, in all of our schools, are over 98%, which sounds pretty impressive. But as you well know from your visits to building and your talks with teachers, that 2% can wreak havoc on our schools. And so when you look at the strategies that we've put in place and you look at the strategies that they've put in place across the district, you'll see two different types of strategies. First, we want to continue to have those universal supports in place, those positive behavior interventions across the board to ensure that we stay at least 98%. Then you'll see the other side of that is how we are taking a lot of our resources and a lot of our personnel to really try to impact that 2% who's causing the problem. You know, we have the Community Youth Services Program, which is one, but we continue to have conversations about how we're going to address that 2%. So, and if you look at the individual school reports, you'll see what they're doing. And then attendance. If you look at attendance, we're not where we want to be. And then when we kind of drill down into that, we see that the issues are where they typically are at the high school, especially with our juniors and our seniors. But one thing that has really been a little bit of an anomaly this year is kindergarten attendance is not good. I don't know if parents think that kindergarten is optional, so they don't send them on a regular basis, or if they're just particularly sick. But kindergarten is an area of concern, so you'll see that some of our schools have addressed that.
They just catch every bug that comes along.
And so that really, as far as my piece of what we're reporting on, is the end. But as we talk about reading, I did want to share with you, and I did put at your places as you came in, the results that we just got today. I'm going to grab a drink. For our spring I Read 3 results. And I also, so that you could have some comparison, gave you last year's results as well, because it's always nice to know which direction we're headed. And so, overall, 82.7%, round that up to 83% of our third graders passed I Read 3, and that's up from last year. I think last year we were at
77.
76.5. 76.7%. And I think Dr. Borf will probably be pointing some of this out to you as well. But we had some real areas of unbelievable achievement. Fairview was one. They had one student who did not pass, missed it by 12 points.
Oh, my goodness.
When I talked to them this morning, the teachers were just devastated. They just couldn't hardly see past that one student, you know? It's like, oh, we almost did it, but...
Congratulations to them, though.
Yes.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
Yes. But even with schools where the scores are not quite where they would like them to be, they have a story for each one of those kids. They know the story. We have 36 of our students of the 61 who didn't pass who are eligible for a good cause exemption. So right now we're looking at a possibility of 25 retentions.
So what does that do to the third grade academy number?
Well, we're still suggesting that those students attend the third grade academy. I mean, it's a much smaller number, but we're still suggesting that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and
excuse me, and it also is dependent on I-STEP.
Sure.
Because we went both ways.
Sure.
If they failed I-STEP, we also recommended, even if they passed.
So there may be some who passed I-READ, but who...
we hope not.
Yes, we hope not.
So anyway, the schools where students didn't pass, they know the student's story, and when you look at the scores of the students, we had several students, I think it was lots, like 15 kids who were within 10 points of passing and another 20 who were within 20 points of passing. And so we feel like we can really get a lot of them over the hump. Last year in Richmond Community Schools, we had 15 students earn a perfect score of 650. This year we had 35 students earn a perfect score of 650 on the exam.
Wow.
Our overall scaled score is higher than it was last year, so it's reflected that everyone is moving up. We only have 4 students with a score less than 400 this year. 446 is passing. And so we saw students who had scores of around 400 last year after intervention and summer school pass it. So we're really hopeful that we'll get almost all of our kids over the hump.
Yeah, nice. That's exciting.
I think at this point, it's also important to give a shout out to Vail. C.R. Richardson last year had a score of around 55%, and Vail had a score of around 64. This year, Vail, which is a combination of C.R. and Vail from last year, has a score of around 84%. That's significant any way you want to cut it.
Great.
And those teachers and students, parents, and so on deserve a huge pat on the back. Job well done.
And I think it's also important to note that this group of students as second graders were a cause for concern because their M-class scores last year weren't quite where we had hoped they would be. And so we weren't, sure what might happen this year. But, the K through 3 teachers have done a phenomenal job of getting these kids ready for this exam. So, questions?
Jeff?
Sit down and answer questions.
Yeah, you can sit down. As I was, and I need to spend more time on this because, but I want to go back to the behavior one. The 98.63%, and we always hear how behavior is such a huge issue in our school system. So, basically what that's saying is 1.5 students out of every 100 students are misbehaving. So, and I heard you, and I don't know whether I just picked up on it tonight, but I heard you kept using the term office referrals. Does that not count? We have a lot of different resources that we send students for if they're behaving, timeout, the CIS, are those included in this office referral percentage?
No. Those are actually interventions that we would implement. What we looked at was, based on how the strategic plan was written, it said 98% of our students will demonstrate appropriate behavior on a daily basis. And so there's really no way to just kind of guesstimate that. What we had to do was go into SWIS, which is our student management system for behavior, and pull a spreadsheet for each individual school. And then we had to sort it by date and make sure that all the dates in the first 2 trimesters were represented. Then we had to look at, were there duplicates? Were there some students who had had more than one office referral a day? And so, for instance, at, let's say, Vail, on this date, there were 16 office referrals, which there weren't. There were 7. Divide that by the total number of students, what percentage of those kids were doing what they were supposed to do, and had to do that for every day for every school. And I did that. Then the other thing I did, because I thought, oh my gosh, this is taking a long time, was to go back in and look at the average referrals per day and calculate it that way. So I calculated it that way. We were within hundredths of a point of percentage doing it that way. So I think from this point on, I'll be looking at average daily referrals. But it's a great number to have because it makes us say, okay, the majority of our kids know what they're supposed to do and they do it on a daily basis. But it doesn't negate the fact that we have to invest our time and our resources, considerable amount, to that 1.5 to 2% who are creating disruption in our school. So we have to kind of balance 2 things. We have to continue to do the things that we know are helping the 98% know what they're supposed to do and be rewarded for what they're doing. And then we also have to spend a lot of time and resources on those kids who don't know what they're supposed to do or choose not to do it.
Well, logically, when you think about it, though, the number, and I'm pleased with the high number, but it just almost doesn't seem realistic based on some of the stories that we hear.
Except you're saying on a daily basis. it doesn't mean that there weren't 10 kids who misbehaved in a week. It just means there were just 2 a day. So that's...
So if they go to timeout, or if they go to the CIS, or if they go to the, because I know a lot of them don't get office referrals. I mean, they go to those resources.
I think anyone that actually has a misbehavior that's identified in their PBIS plan goes to the office as it's called an office discipline referral, an ODR. Doesn't mean that there aren't some kids who might have a behavior plan that says when I need to calm down or I need to get away from a little bit of stimulation, I can go down to the CIS office. But those aren't places where we send kids for punishment or consequences. Those are a part of a behavior plan that they would have in place. So those would not be considered office referrals or negative reinforcers.
But once again, that's not the student that we hear the stories about.
Right.
Because their interventions are helping them. It's the stories that we hear it's that small percent with the serious issues.
Pat?
I'm interested in the rest of the CPAS that goes on, Focus Area 3, all of those that are in progress, the surveys and all of those kind of things. What? What?
Funny you should ask.
Yes, I'm sitting next to Misty, whose name appears on most, but I was interested in how we plan to go about that. We don't have a lot of time left this year.
We would like to have a survey out before the end of April. And we considered sending 2 different surveys. One would be the regular planned survey that we had thought about at the beginning of the year, but we also think it would be a great thing if we could wrap another survey into this so that we're not sending 2 different surveys out.
Right.
And we want to wait until the board has its work session, because we're inviting parents and community participants to that work session, talking about the future of the system, and we would rather have our survey go out after we can factor in some of the feedback that we gained from that night. So our survey will go out very shortly after our next work session. That way, parents will only be asked to fill out 1 survey rather than 2 different ones.
How are you going to send those out?
Well, most of those will be sent out. It'll be an online survey.
Primarily electronic.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and
Easier to get results that way.
besides the survey, we have a number of goals around communication, and so will the communication plan come after the survey? Is it a result of the survey? Is it?
well, that depends on how we build our survey,
Yeah.
but that would be the hope. That would be the intent.
Well, I would just like to say, as I was looking through all of the schools, there certainly have been improvements at most of the schools, if not all of them. But one that I want to mention is I was really taken back with the attendance at test, 99%. And I thought, whatever they're doing, the rest of the schools need to emulate that, because obviously something is working.
Well, and when we were talking about student behavior, I also wanted to say it's too bad we can't track all the hundreds of interventions that go on a daily basis in the classroom by the teachers to keep the students from getting those office referrals. It's a very, very heavy load, and I think our teachers work very, very hard at that. So,
And despite some of the good numbers, and I want to call attention, Mrs. Wolpe is here, I want to call attention to the high school numbers. We have seen a huge decrease in the number of suspensions and expulsions at the high school this year, and I credit that not to harsher consequences, but to a new focus on the culture of the high school. Kids are feeling better about being there. It's a great place to be. It always has been a great place to be, but we have more and more people admitting that. But what I'd also like to say, Mrs. Morgeson and Mr. Millis and I had an opportunity to sit and talk to the teachers at length yesterday at Vail for one of our lounge conversations. And despite the good numbers, we still have some tweaking to do, some improvement to do with the way we respond to that 1.5%, 2%. And we will be, you don't see it in the strategies here because we don't have all the data. We haven't had all the conversations yet. But we are looking to see how we can streamline our approach so that we can get consequences and responses back much more quickly to the teachers and to the principals as they're struggling to find ways to address some of these behavior issues represented by that 1 or 2%. And we've just got to be doing that. The other thing that we're going to be looking at, we experimented this year over at Vail with a teacher who went in and worked just with some of our students who have some issues with behavior. And what we found was, as this teacher worked in a very small group with them, and it was in their reading block, what was found was that those students were much more approachable, much easier to work with the rest of the day outside their reading block, which is the bulk of their day. And we're thinking that we may have stumbled onto an approach. It's actually kind of like a school within a school, but there are no walls. It's not a separate room. We may be doing a little more of that next year.
Well, I think we certainly need to explore some non-traditional approaches, and because our teachers at Vail were very, very sincere and with the challenges that they face on a daily basis, but yet they were very positive also about what they do there and the approaches that they are using. So we just need to continue to give them the support and the kids the support that they need, whether Pat?
As I read through this, and one of our goals is partnerships, and we have to acknowledge that a lot of some of our success has happened because of the kinds of partnerships, the Boys and Girls Club, and after June, when the Safe School, Healthy Student money goes away, and even though we've started doing something about that, we have to be aware that we're going to have to find some resources that might have to replace some of those. And we don't know exactly what that looks like, but I know in schools where the CIS people really do help ameliorate some of the issues that we're talking about. And so it's been a partnership, the teachers in the classroom and the external services that we're getting. So how we balance all of that, I think, will be tougher going forward without the financial resources we have.
Well, another thing that I think that we need to really consider is that, equity doesn't necessarily mean equal. And all of our schools have individual needs that we need to be looking at and addressing. And it may not be that everybody has the same number of maybe special ed teachers, or may not have the same number of, whatever. So I think that we're at a place where we really need to think about.
Look at the whole organization, pinpoint the needs and go there.
I also wanted to say, too, that some of the things, especially at the high school, and I just made this observation when I attended the R Factor talent show. What I saw that night was absolutely phenomenal, because the kids that got up to sing or dance or participate with their talents, some of them didn't start so well. Normally you would hear the booing and the hissing and the jeering. Those kids got behind the kids who had difficulty, yelled out, told them, start over, we're behind you, go girl, go guy. It was all this. And then when they showed the Communities and Schools video, the kids absolutely poured out their pockets to give to that Communities and Schools night. It was something it was just phenomenal. I could not believe how supportive the kids were of each other. It was a great thing to see.
And of communities and schools.
Yes, absolutely.
It was amazing.
I'd just like to add a brief comment that CPAS is really a formative process, and we, as a team, spent time in each building working with the principal, the coaches, sometimes teams, a couple of teachers, and with students. And many of those people prepared a lot of information, and I'm sure maybe didn't sleep at night knowing we were coming. And then students were so excited to share their data and talk to us. So I would remind the board that really this is a scorecard that we're sharing right now. But the actual process, and I can go through here and probably maybe next time, this has given us a nice foundation, but we sort of highlight what we heard. I think we did that the last time from each building, a couple things that really stood out in terms of their focus. But it's a good sharing process for both sides, because we can also give some comments on maybe our ideas. And so anyway, I thought we'd throw that in.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask something here because I see Mrs. Wolpe and Mrs. Kimball there, but I don't see anything on the agenda.
It comes down to
The overnight
MOU.
academic,
Oh,
the overnight academic trip.
Memorandum of Understanding. with Notre Dame.
okay, I see it now. I just wanted to make sure that we got you in here.
Well, and we've got Keith and the NOM thing back there, so we'll get all of those
Maybe
celebrations,
maybe we
won't
could
we?
pull that out. Would you like for me to pull that out?
Why don't, I think that would go nicely with our 2020 vision.
Let's pull that out. The Memorandum of Understanding, Notre Dame Advanced Placement Program. I'm recommending that the board approve the Memorandum of Understanding as it has been posted on the web and is included in your packet. And they're here tonight to answer any questions you may have to approve that motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Kelly Baumgartner, seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments or questions? Or do you want to wait till they come up and
Grill them.
talk to us? Or-
Well, I will tell you, Ron Cross had an opportunity to review the Memo of Understanding, and he posed several questions. I don't know if you have a copy of that set of questions. Mrs. Kimball responded, probably doing some negotiating a little bit with our friends from Notre Dame, and came back with the version of MOU that you're looking at to approve.
Not the one that came off the web.
It was the one that Pam sent to you wasn't that
It
just
was at
today?
our places
Maybe at our
tonight.
places.
It's at our place.
It was at our
Yesterday.
places tonight.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I haven't read that one.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Now, if you would please come forward and talk to us. You've been so patient.
Thank you so much. It's always an honor to be here and to talk and listen about Richmond Community Schools. And we feel like that our new advanced placement grant goes right along with the district vision, 2020 vision, which we molded our Richmond High School vision to match the district's vision. And I believe that this grant is going to help us reach that vision of being one of the best high schools in eastern Indiana, and we'd even like to expand that to the state. But, and I'm going to let Karen give you some details, but just briefly, what this advanced placement grant does, there was a study at Florida, actually piloted an AP grant similar to what Notre Dame is doing in Indiana. one of the most significant things about what they found from this advanced placement grant, number one, it increases the number of students and the diversity of students that are taking advanced placement exams. The second thing that they found was those students who took an advanced placement course in high school, because of the rigor, those students, it directly correlates to being successful in college. And I think most of us know a lot of times we have students that go to college, they hit that rigor, they hit that 200 kids in a lecture hall, and oh my gosh, all of a sudden I can't do this. You know, and I don't make it through my first semester. This will help our students be more successful in college because of the rigor. And this grant not only helps our AP teachers at the high school, we're adding 4 new AP classes. So we'll have a total of 11 advanced placement classes offered at Richmond High School. But it also trains and supports not only the AP teachers, but the pre-AP teachers, which are our honors, for the most part, our honors courses, and it supports our 7th and 8th grade pre-AP courses too. So it's an unbelievable opportunity for Richmond High School. And so I'm going to let Karen talk about some of the other things about the grant.
One of the things that's going to happen on April 26th is everybody, 23rd, okay, is everybody's invited to the State House, to the atrium, and the governor's going to be there and a lot of very important people, and we are all supposed to be there to represent the launching and the recognition and the ceremony of us getting this grant, which we're pretty excited about. The other thing, they're showing statistic-wise that the most important thing that colleges are looking at for students and admitting them to college is the course selection in college prep classes. That's the number one thing. And this is definitely going to solve that and increase what we're offering. One
of the things when Notre Dame came to visit us, we are actually the second cohort in Indiana from Notre Dame for the AP grant. But one of the things that they talked to us about in the admissions office at Notre Dame, what they do is they'll look at a student's transcript, and the first thing that they do is they highlight how many advanced placement classes they have taken. That's their number one indicator of are we going to accept this student at Notre Dame University. So again, by increasing the number of classes, and it's just giving our students such an opportunity.
They will, like she said, they highlight that puts Richmond High School in competition with so many other schools that have been pushing their APs. We're going to be right up there at the top. And by the way, I hope the world is listening tonight, because collectively what you guys have done, you've had somebody from the community and showing our community connections. You're working on Excel, you're increasing your scores, you have advanced placement. Richmond High School, Richmond Community School is a pretty amazing place. I hope the world is listening. Yes. One of the things the grant is doing is it will give us $10,000 a year to increase our labs in sciences, physics, chemistry, environmental science, biology. So that's $10,000 a year. We're going to grow. We get 30 total. And we'll be able to have some stellar labs and stellar equipment. That's phenomenal. The other thing they're going to do is give student rewards for every 3, 4, or 5 score that they make. Each student gets $100. So let's say theoretically, and the way Joe Spicer and everybody's working the magic, they now start taking APs. They have 3 choices as sophomores, several choices as juniors, several choices as seniors. So they could collectively take 8, 10, whatever they want to do here in a 3-year time period. That's $1,000. That's a lot of money for a kid.
Not to mention college.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And getting the dual credits.
Yeah. But and
Go ahead.
and the dollar figure behind that is phenomenal.
Yeah, their budget is pretty fun to look at, so, and they did it. And by the way, though, I do want to say Notre Dame's getting the credit, but this is race to the top money. And it went to NIMSY, and NIMSY gave it to Notre Dame. So technically, we got our finger in that pie.
We did get a little
Yes.
more money.
Yes.
Well, as I read this, what excites me the most, but I'm really interested in your plans to recruit. I mean, how do we start taking kids, who don't see themselves as AP students and get them into the honors classes, the pre-stuff, and we can't wait until the current seventh graders are up there. We've got to do the recruiting.
It's a magic button that we learned. I learned it just last week. You put in this code, you hit the %, and their PSAT scores come out automatically, and the numbers are phenomenal. We have hundreds of kids who are qualified. It's called the AP Potential. And so they take their PSAT scores, all across the city. We can see them on every student, and in 2 seconds, it also has a letter already generated in the computer, and it puts the student's name on it and all of the 3 or 4 or 5 or however many their PSAT scores say that they can take or that they qualify. The letter's going out right after spring break. So it's
Wow.
going home, and each student is going to hear, I could take these 3, I could take these 4, whatever it's going to be.
And so Brian is going to do a special article on.
Yes, he is. We're working on it.
Paying attention. I mean, seriously, parents have to understand the power
It'll
of
be
that
there.
letter. It's
a
not just a.
very personalized letter. The other thing from the data room, we're doing the reading scores this year, so we've tabulated those. So Joe and I are working on cross-referencing both of those data so that we can hit all of the kids. It's phenomenal. People that you would not have thought of before, they're sitting there with 1,300 and 1,400 SRI scores, which is college level, and they're sleepers. Those are people we haven't been seeing.
They don't see themselves as confident students.
Exactly.
And so when you take a class like this and have some success, then you build your confidence, which moves you to
And
the higher level.
our AP teachers have also been visiting all the pre-AP classes and recruiting.
Good.
So
We're getting the word out. The stipend and the awards budget is like $100,000. Student study sessions, $75,000. They're helping the students and giving them incentives to show up for the extra study sessions.
Well,
It's a
the folks from Notre Dame will be coming and conducting Saturday tutoring sessions.
They are the teachers for that day. It's called content directors. There are 3 of them. They came over. They're amazing. They're fast. They're quick. They know how to get to kids. They're really amazing. And they'll hold all the Saturday sessions. They're so enthusiastic. And they're throwing a blanket over this whole process where we just can't fail. And they're coming to our open house at the high school, April 30th. Oh, sure, we'll show up. We'll have a booth. We'll do this. They're really just genuinely excited about moving students forward and helping them become more than they can be. And they're amazing staff. So they actually teach the Saturday sessions. The teachers from Richmond High School show up to support or do whatever they can on the Saturday time. So
The grant pays for all of our AP teachers and pre-AP teachers to be trained in the summertime also.
we now have representatives from each middle school going to pre-AP training, and several of the honors staff at the high school going for pre. They gave us 9 spots for the pre, plus all of the AP.
Nice.
So it's pretty exciting.
In case you guys leave, I think when we get to celebrations, the academic teams under the tutelage of Ms. Kimball won the North Central Conference.
Yes.
Academic
NCC champs.
NCC champs, and I don't want you to get out without hearing that. Congratulations.
I'll come back.
And Karen and Ray, I just want to say, this is what high expectations is all
And
about.
high performance.
That's
Exactly.
fantastic.
The registration's already happening. The kids are like, I'm talking to my sophomores, they have 3 and 4 classes already registered for next year. They're all like, well, we're doing this AP and this AP. Everybody's talking about this. Students are like grabbing it as fast as they can.
That's good.
So we're excited.
Well, now I know that you were both sitting back there just eagerly waiting to get up here, and I understand why.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you very much.
Thank you for endorsing the MOU, which was perfect. That's what we needed to get going. Now we go celebrate.
You're also in charge of National Honor Society, correct?
Yes. I'll be back up in a minute.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we're ready for our press conference, and Brian, we're actually creating job security for you tonight with all these stories that you can. We hope so.
Let's pull the positive.
Yeah. Anyone have anything that they, for the press conference? Any questions?
Real quick, was there an actual vote on the refinancing or the level option? Was that a unanimous vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Just wanted to make.
Anything?
I'm just wondering, since nothing got brought up, the legal issues with the C.R. Richardson building. I know Ron Cross was consulting something, and did that all get cleared up? Is the charter, we can take that back, or RCS can take that back to use it for this type of outside stuff as legally? Is that?
At this time, the DOE, the Department of Education, recognizes no claim on that building except the one that RCS has.
Okay. I was just curious, because I didn't want to make sure that was clear.
Right.
Yeah.
Good question. Good. Thanks. Okay, we're ready for consent items.
Our consent items tonight include the approval of the March 11th, 2013 special board meeting and March 13th board minutes and executive session. Recommendation by Human Resources, and there is not an addendum tonight. Recommendation by Accounts Payable. A recommendation to approve a change order for the Hibbard Building. Recommendation to approve the Wayne County Foundation grant by Civic Hall. A recommendation to approve a request for corporation-sponsored travel, and this would be by the academic teams. And a recommendation to approve the monthly financial report.
Do I have a motion to accept the consent items?
So
Aaron
moved.
Stevens, seconded by Jeff Slifer. Questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Now we're ready for our second public commentary. Anyone signed up or anyone wishing to speak? Okay, well, we are ready to follow up on old business. I guess we need to start with conversation about our next work session. And if anybody has, what the plan is to invite parents to that particular meeting and community members for them to have an opportunity to have a discussion concerning possible changes to our school system or things that we might want to do in our schools, and ask them to weigh in on that conversation and to think about that. So does anybody have any comments or ideas or suggestions of how do we want to keep the same format that we have done with our others? One thing that we are asking is for board members to be hopefully willing to facilitate those groups. So do you want to keep the same format, Aaron?
I suggest we keep the same format. I'm sure that the public will have the topics of discussion available to them ahead of time, but everything that we've done for the last few years has been gathered through the participation from the public, and I think it's worked really well. You know, unfortunately, we don't have 3,000 people showing up to participate in these discussions, but I like the way that the formats have been going, you know, and it eventually turns out the board members do facilitate a lot of them anyway. But I enjoy the input and just the candid input from the people who have participated with us.
Okay, thanks. Jeff?
part of the survey that you're thinking about, you're forming the questions and the outlines for us to facilitate, for us to discuss, correct?
Yes, but it's not the survey.
Well, right, but I mean, are there going to be some of those questions on it, or?
Yes. We'll have some suggestions on how to lead the facilitation. The big issue will be, what would you like for your schools to look like in the next 5 years? That'll be the overarching, but there will be some lead-in questions to help you facilitate and get the conversation moving.
And the reason that we're holding off on the survey is to incorporate the, perhaps some of the ideas that are generated at our meeting. So,
I just want to make sure that one of the things that I thought on our last work session, it took us a little while, I think, to get off the ground in some of the groups, and at least it was in my group. And once we got started, we were fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there was some confusion. Each of the members of the group had a little bit of a different idea of what we were supposed to be discussing. So I'm kind of hoping that if we have it ahead of time, which I'm sure we will, then we can be a little bit more focused on getting that started. So.
Yeah, I think each time we'll get better. It's a new venture for us. And,
I enjoy it.
So, but I appreciate these thoughts, because that's the way we will get better at.
Will this be, one thought I had, we had a group of experts who came up with some things. And sometimes when you have a group who doesn't know as much about a topic, they're only giving their wants and wishes, having something that was framed from the experts. If I were to summarize what happened at the last work session in 3 or 4 assumptions or something that came out of that, that would frame a really good discussion. You know, we've had people who think about this. What do you think about this? And then it would allow people to go on, and it would allow people to not have to start from, oh my gosh, where do I begin? From this whole worldwide conversation to start with a narrow conversation, because we have to start with where folks are.
So
And
utilize.
it would give credibility to the conversations we had that last work session, that it wasn't just arbitrary and, oh, wasn't that fun? We had a great discussion. Oh, well, yeah, we're not going to use that information. But if you think about, as I thought about how I might do this, if I thought about 3 or 4 major points, it is, how do you help a kid find his or her unique talents and interests and create a continuum or a path for that child to follow through pre-K through high school. We talked about that kind of thing. The other thing we talked about, it seemed to me that many of our when we want creativity and collaboration and those kind of things, the question is, do we, and this is a paradox, do you teach creativity or do you teach through creativity? And so we ought to be having some parents there. What kind of student do you want? What do you want your kid to be able to do when they finish school? And when you think about that, because those are the 21st century skills that you talked about, that you threw out there. So for me, it would be, how do we utilize the best thinking of what happened that other night in 2 or 3 statements that could generate and get the conversation started? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It does.
Rather than just say, throw it open, because then we have 2 sessions where you throw it open, and then we as a board have to sort through it, and it's going to be May before we have a chance to sit down and talk to one another about sorting through.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. Aaron?
I guess I'm just trying to understand everything that you just said, and just
if you do,
put
let
in
me
my
know.
put in my own thoughts. It seems like there's the potential that we'll have some new faces participating with us at the next one, and I hope so. And what you're saying, get several of those key points that were made from there, and let those be the building blocks from where we start from. Therefore, if we do have someone new, at least we're not starting all over again with the conversation.
Well, it becomes a continued conversation.
continuation,
Rather
right.
than
Correct.
always starting anew. So,
And I think, what are the question, I mean, shades of David Stidham, what question are we trying to answer? The question we're trying to answer is, how do we develop a programmatic approach that attracts students to our school system? I mean, that's what we're after, right? And so we want more students. We know we already have great things going, so what is it we need to do?
well, and to add on to that, and that will benefit the students, not just attract them, but also benefit.
Right. And one of the things that worried me about the last conversation, it was an awful lot about what adults do, not what kids do. You know, we talked about a lot what what adults do, and how do we change this to make sure we're talking about kids. Well, you do that, especially if you have parents and community. What do you want your child to be like? What do you want them to be able to do and know and feel like when they finish 12, 13 years of school?
Well, and the other part of this conversation that we need to hold is we had talked about our own staff, our own teachers, and how to get more input from them. We had several at our work session the last time, but I thought that we had determined that we wanted to reach out to them. And one of the things that we had talked about in the executive committee was doing the conversations like we just did this week at Vail, and maybe that would be a good way. But I've sort of reflected on that a little bit and thinking about what happened yesterday, and it was kind of an ongoing conversation because, you know, people were leaving and people were coming, and
right.
And I'm not sure that we would accomplish what we really want to accomplish in that period of time, and they're trying to eat their lunch and, you know, thinking about what they need to do when they leave that room to be with kids. And so I don't know. What are your thoughts? That was just something that kind of popped into my head after being at Vail yesterday, and I began thinking.
You want a radical idea? Here's what I was thinking. You know, we're going to do the excellence ceremony on a Tuesday, correct? And encourage everybody to come for a change. It'd be all right to have a few little conversations.
When?
I'm not sure that we'll have time for that.
Well,
because
I know.
remember, we've contracted with a special speaker
I know.
to come in.
And it'll take most of the time. But I was trying to think of where teachers already are, rather than trying to...
Well, and that's, I think we need to think about that.
Where they already are, and how, you know, honoring excellence. We want your excellent ideas, and here are some things that we're playing around with.
It is a good idea.
Well, of course it is.
Minimize your good idea, but the time may be an issue.
And it may be too late to add it to that. But what I was just trying to think about where we would find
which is why
lots
I
of
think
teachers.
why we talked about the lunchroom, because again, you're not creating another meeting. You're having,
Yep.
and people can come in and engage at whatever level they wish to.
Well,
But
yeah, and if you have the whole system there, it's almost too big of a group to get individual ideas. So I still kind of think it needs to be at the building level.
I would underscore your insight, though. The power of that lunchtime lounge conversation is that it's their agenda.
That's right. We just listen.
We're there, and
Yep.
they're the ones who are talking. I think if you told them that there is going to be a topic of discussion and you want their input during lunch, there are other places in the building to have lunch.
Yeah.
And they'll find those places.
Yeah.
When we first started, if you recall,
I do.
they were a little apprehensive about coming and sitting with us. But I think that's pretty much gone now. It's a very
But I don't know
good
that you have to have it
conversation.
scripted, I guess. I mean, because over the course of time that we've done those conversations, we have thrown out topics.
Yeah, we have.
We've said, okay, tell us about assessment. Or you've said, okay, I have a question about topic A. Discuss. And sometimes 2 or 3 would do so, and then other times it would divert to their issue.
Takes on a life of its own.
So I don't,
If we're going to try to have continuing conversations, it would be very difficult just because of the
Coming and
constant
going, yeah.
movement. You don't have it was kind of interesting because one table was full. And we were having this conversation, but people at the other table were beginning to turn around, and they wanted to, they weren't necessarily engaged in our conversation, but then they kind of heard what we were talking about, and so, there are, I understand the convenience of it. I'm just not sure that it's totally appropriate.
Don't know if we'll get out of it what we're interested. We could always have some questions to throw out there and see if it takes us a direction that's
Right.
helpful.
But you also know how hard it is to get those things scheduled.
well, but so now if you add something else,
Yeah.
another group that can be more consistent and have more time, I think we're going to struggle with that. That's the thing. So, and you don't want
I
to take their
agree.
Tuesday time, and I don't want to take anything away from what's already there. So I'm not sure. Maybe they'll have some suggestions themselves.
Well,
about-
Wendy's sitting out in our audience. I don't want to put you on the spot, Wendy, but
What about
if
before
you
school?
have any ideas or any thoughts, that would be appreciated.
And I'll certainly, Dr. Borf and I need to talk, so we'll.
Yeah. And again, if the question is clear, if we're clear about what we want and why we want it, I think that goes a long way to helping find a time to do it as well.
Well, maybe just asking the teachers, rather than us making. So I guess this will be an ongoing conversation that we need to.
And you know what? Equity doesn't mean equal, Linda. I think somebody said that earlier this evening. So it might mean every school we approach differently. One
Right.
faculty might like us to come 7:15 in the morning for a half an hour, and some might want some other time. So it doesn't. One size
Agree.
doesn't
That's
have to
true.
fit all.
That's a good point. Okay. Anything else under old business?
I'm not going to do it.
Okay. Okay, we're ready for superintendent and board reports, reflections, and celebrations.
Well, I have a few that I'll start with. One, I would like to recognize Jeff Thorne. Often he goes unrecognized. He's the kind of the voice behind that big screen and stage at Civic Hall. But Jeff Thorne was the one responsible for bringing the Miami University singers in the other night and joining our choral classes. If you were there, it was an unbelievable presentation. It was just moving. The stage was lined with people, packed with people. I don't know that they could have put one more student up there, but the sound was incredible and it was wonderful. Connie Coddington probably said it best when she said that you just can't get better than this. Bob was out there and said if there wasn't a dry eye after that Battle Hymn of the Republic, they weren't listening. So, but really, a big thanks to Jeff. We recognize our teachers of the different music departments, but Jeff does a nice job of organizing that. Every student from Miami University went away with a little gift from Richmond Community Schools.
Nice.
Just so you know. I also want to compliment Kathy Parker and Linda Morganson for a presentation made to the State Department, or the State Board of Education. I know that I've said this before, but it went very well. But from that presentation, we've been asked to present to the Urban School Conference, summer conference this year.
Cool.
And just last week, the Indiana School Boards Association has asked us to present at their summer conference. And when I asked what it was about the presentation that they felt was important, and they said it's the use of data to change the direction of your program. They felt that the partnerships, the focus on data, the focus on the future, all had messages that we needed to send to other school boards. And they've asked us to do 2 sessions, an hour in length, at the summer conference. Kudos to our
That's great.
traveling team.
Are you finished? Well, you said you had a lot.
I could probably go on, but no, for right now.
But I made a list, and I think we should retitle this session. You know, our vision says we're going to be the highest performing school system, and when I started making a list of high performers, we had Christy Wampler, who was 3rd vault in the state. We had the BPA sending a number of students to national. We had the North Central Conference Academic Team Champions. We have the NOM Award, and we all know from the School Board Association how important NOM is. And since Keith is here, we'll have him explain. Do you mind? So can we have him explain that sometime? But the Winter Drumline was 6th in the Indiana State Percussion. The Test Choir had a night of music and dinner and raised an enormous amount of money for that. We had 56 students inducted into the National Honor Society, and because of Bridget's attention to our Facebook page, we know all of the honor roll students in this school system. In all of the elementary schools from 3rd grade up, we know the honor roll students, and that's extremely important to recognize them. The all North Central basketball selectees were Joel Okafor, Charles Hampton, Mackenzie Taylor, Abdul Shabazz, Davius Webster, and Brooklyn Taylor. So we have high performance in lots of things we do, and I would like for us to celebrate the high performance, those areas, as well as academics.
Well, Jake Miller needs to be added to that group.
I'd say not
Basketball
exhaustible.
prowess.
That's right. He was 2nd in the state.
2nd or 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
And the free throws. But the NOM Award, I think, is really important. We are one of 66 out of a number of groups. So
Keith, would you like to please come forward?
I mean, we can read it, but coming from you, it's more important.
I don't come here to talk. I really do like watching these things. But
that's
you gotta ask questions. The NOM Award is the National Association of Music Manufacturers. It's the companies that build and make the instruments, sound equipment, all that kind of stuff. They do a survey every year about the December, January time frame, and they ask basically to fill out a survey for your corporation and for your school. I did the school one, obviously, because I'm one person. And it asks questions about financial budgets, how many kids you see a day, what's your total enrollment of your school, different ensembles you provide, outreach opportunities, if there's things in the community that kids can be a part of, musical-wise, and competitions. And based off that, it goes back to the University of Kansas, I believe, and it gets reviewed, and then they select from applicants. I think this year there were 2,500 applicants. 66 individual schools are honored and 248 districts, I believe. There were 4 districts in Indiana and only 2 individual schools. So pretty cool moment for, I think, Richmond in itself and for the high school and for the corporation to be a part of that.
And for you. It is. And it says that we are committed to music. Correct?
Yeah, it's music education.
Thank you for completing that. I think that's fantastic. I mean, I think we've been doing these things for a long time, and I just don't think we've been tooting our horn about it. And,
exactly. It's just
no pun intended, right?
Pardon me?
No pun intended.
Well, yeah, actually, I can't take credit for that. But I do thank you for that, because every year we go to the national conference with school boards, and NOM is very active in trying to encourage protecting the arts in schools, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
that's why they do
Well,
it.
if there's no arts, there's no business.
Exactly. And we all know the benefits for kids academically as well. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Thank you.
Well, and I think also to you and to Karen and others in our system that go after these grants, these awards, because it takes extra effort to get all the information together and send all this stuff in. And I think it's wonderful that we have people doing
You guys
that.
added the musical back in, which I'm sure that helped. I mean, I just think that's great. Awesome stuff.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
no.
Thank you.
So I'd like celebrating, and I think we can start using our vision statement about high performing or highest
agree.
performing, because when we send students out to do things, we expect and get high performance.
Well, and when you mentioned the test night of music and dinner, the gym was packed with parents. So that came out and supported their kids in their music endeavors, and it was a really nice evening. Everyone was enjoying themselves, so it was very nice. And again, to Randy Ecker and his choirs, that was just great.
Wow.
I have one too.
Suzanne?
I have a classroom one because today, for some reason, I was able to go to Charles, to the third grade classroom, Mrs. V's room, and they had a living biography museum, and it was the most fun thing I've seen in a long time. They were studying biography, and so each child picked a person to be, and they had these posters. It makes me giggle just thinking about it because they cut their hole out and they put their head in, and then they created the face of the person who they were, and they had all this timeline on it, and they were talking to you, and you asked them a question. So, tell me a little bit of something interesting about yourself, and they were speaking in the first person about the person that they were, and the kids did a tremendous job. It was a lot of fun, and I'm so happy that I was able to slip in there because it was a lot of fun. So Mrs. V did a good job, and the kids, third graders, and they were terrific. One little girl was telling me about, she was Susan B. Anthony, and she said, do you know that we could not vote because we were women? And I just don't think that was fair. I just thought that was great. So.
Okay, anybody else? Well, we are successful, obviously. Adjourned.
Performing.
High performing.
We are high performing.
Well, I noticed I missed the